Well, good morning, everybody. Here, as we start the day on Wednesday, I just want to kind of get this out of the way right at the beginning of the forecast video. I'm going to be talking later in this video about what I think the rest of April might look like, and I'm going to tell you I feel like I've lost this signal. Sometimes you start to see things unfold and they push in a certain direction, but when I show you some of these model trends and then talk to you about what might be pushing all of this along in the Pacific Ocean, I think the Pacific is still the source region. I'm just going to make a case for why I need a couple more days to rethink what I thought the temperature pattern especially was going to be in April. I think April is going to be active for severe weather, but it's this temperature pattern that's bothering me. Okay, so with that out of the way, I want to show you some cool satellite data from yesterday. So this is just a quick look. I'm going to rock back and forth over yesterday afternoon and the evening. There's the sunset line there. By the way, since we are past the spring equinox, technically, this line has a little bit of a lean to it to the right as it goes up like a forward slash, and that is because we're slowly gaining we're rapidly gaining those daylight hours at this time of year in March and April. But what was neat about this is you can find the flow pretty easily. You can see the large ridge that's here. We can see the rest of the flow kind of curling up around a low there. And we did get some interesting weather out of this the other day. Like, look at this wall. I guess you can call this a Chinook wall coming off of the Rocky Mountains here in Montana. I would have really liked to have seen that. Look at it overnight. Look at the infrared signal there. And then, of course, in the evening, you could see the storms that were near the Red River Valley, near Dallas. These were some large storms yesterday that came out here. But it's this piece right here that's also interesting because there's a cutoff low that's snuck underneath this. That's going to be the initial source of some very wet weather down in Texas going forward. But I want to show you a couple other things here. First of all, the storms last night. I mean, this is spring convection. Look at this thing go. Multiple large supercell thunderstorms here casting big, long anvil shadows. Just beautiful to see these in the data. You can see a couple of large areas of some fire smoke in a few different pockets here. Like, look at the one right in through there as well. But it's this. This is actually the more fascinating piece, believe it or not. That is a part of what is going to be driving a major flood risk, I think, in southern Texas here as we go forward in this forecast. But very quickly, I do want to show you a map of hail recently. And we just kind of looked down here. This was from the previous few days, but this is what we saw last night. And several of these storms putting down, as you can see, baseball-size hail as they went through this particular region. Now, a lot of attention is going to turn to the northwest before we come back to Texas. And there's a deep but kind of very sharp low that's kind of spinning its way off of the northwest coast, excuse me. Now, when I say kind of sharp, what I mean is in its size. It's very focused, it's very small, and it's got a very tight spin to it. And as it moves into the northwest over the next 24 hours, it does increase the risk of severe weather. So we kind of brought this up each day this week. But the Storm Prediction Center has identified a pretty large area in here through parts like the I-5 corridor, the Willamette Valley, getting up toward Seattle, where there is a slight risk for severe storms today. And just thinking this through, I kind of want to walk you through a couple of the big ingredients for this. So normally when it's this point in March and April, and you look at these maps of Cape, I don't often see high Cape values here in this region. We're typically very stable still in the month of March. But to see this available potential energy there for these thunderstorms is something impressive. And this is tonight. Normally where we see it, I'll just click play, is down here into Texas, the mid-south, southeast. And we do see multiple chances over the next 10 days. Watch it again. Here we go. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's a big one there. Monday as well. We see multiple chances of opening the Gulf to these temporary shots at possibly some strong storms starting this weekend. And this will be a big day to be watching here on Sunday, getting into Monday. There you go. So I'll come back to that in a few moments, but just take a look. If we watch how the storm predictions maps evolve, we're first going to see the severe weather threat increase down here in Texas. They have a slight risk, but we do have thunderstorm chances that roll through parts of the Midwest as well. This is tomorrow's map, getting into Thursday. By Friday, this is the beginning of this next large system coming across the country. There's a couple of areas of marginal risk. But as we get into the weekend, take a look at this. This would be Sunday. Sunday's severe storm risk from the Storm Prediction Center. Very broad area, stretching from Texas all the way to the Ohio Valley. And then getting into Monday, it's going to spread into the southeast. Now, when I think about the rest of April and knowing where this pattern's been in March, it would take a pretty colossal pattern shift to drop a tremendous amount of cold air in this area to ruin the chances of April staying active. And that's what I'm questioning. So we're trying to figure out if this April pattern is going to stay as busy as March has been, because March severe weather has been quite active. I mean, I'll show you this real quick. one of my favorite sites is the rough sum page from the Storm Prediction Center. This is all of our severe weather reports so far this year. I'm just going to show you March. Look at March's contribution. So this has come from 3 big systems. We know we have more coming to finish this month. The question just becomes April. I think April is going to be on repeat with this. Highly volatile temperatures. But if if the atmosphere drops a deep cold trough of air here, you'll get northwest flow and it'll ruin this. That type of flow with the deep trough here and northwest flow only works in the heart of summer, like July and August, to give you thunderstorms in this corridor. So that's the big question. That's what we're trying to answer here. Okay, so what are we watching right now? And I'm going to come back to this discussion about the Pacific Ocean, but here's deep low number 1, there's trough number 2, and there's a little bit of squeeze in the atmosphere coming into the backside of this trough. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take you to 3 spots. We're going to start in the northwest with the high resolution rapid refresh model. Now, as I play this forward, let's just get a sense on the timing of these storms. The time zone is in the Pacific time zone. I need to relabel that. I don't know why I put Western. It should be Pacific time zone here. And what we notice, here it is. This would be 5 o'clock tonight to about 8 o'clock tonight. That's round number 1, going right up against the Cascades, as you can see here in the high-res model, producing the risk of these severe storms. And there is the risk that they could rotate. There's enough synoptic scale shear in this. There's also the risk of hail out of these storms as well. I took a look at some of the sounding data here, forecast sounding data. It's a loaded sounding. So please be aware of this risk tonight in this region. We then watch that rain spread more into northern parts of Washington, and then there'll be secondary, bands that come through of heavier rain as we work our way through the day on Thursday as the low approaches. And so there you can kind of get a good look at this 36-hour forecast. Texas, again, we know that low is sneaking through, so if we watch where that one's coming from, this is through the rest of the day today, so our continued showers and storms here through mid-morning. And then we're watching this afternoon, right down there, for the risk of these stronger storms to appear. So this is tonight getting into tomorrow, and this is just the first potential round of some very heavy rain coming into southern Texas. You also got an idea that we might be seeing some scattered showers and storms coming through the Midwest. I'll just kind of zoom in there real quick. Let's take you back. There's a little wave there that's kind of getting squeezed in the atmosphere, a little ribbon of vorticity sneaking down through Minnesota. Actually, I'm in Alexandria today. I'll show you more about that in a moment. And this is going to go right through southern Wisconsin and just possibly initiate some storms here in the, in Illinois and Indiana, as time goes forward. But if you just look at the next 7 days, we kind of come back to a narrative we've had for a while, right? There's this pocket in through here where, because of the speed of these systems coming through and their net position, that March has been delivering very dry air, these dry slots that keep showing up in this area. We have another corridor here that shows up drier, with our wettest conditions being in the Midwest, the Great Lakes states, pockets of the Northeast. And we've seen these systems kind of fail to linger over pockets and parts of the Southeast. Now, I think that's going to change here pretty soon, but we need to just keep an eye on this region for possible drought development going forward. Now, the West continues to see, this almost miracle March type behavior, and I'm going to show you some snowfall maps in a few moments for the West that are going to be quite impressive for the Sierra Nevada, adding more late season snow in. But that is a narrative that I'm stuck on. This when are we going to fill in narrative, right? These are these pockets that continue to show up as dry. So I want to show you 3 maps in a row here, and they're looking at the next 2 weeks combined. So these are 14-day precipitation anomaly maps. And here's the European solution. So throughout the Mississippi and Ohio Valley, very wet. We're looking at precipitation anomalies, in the 2 to 4 inch range compared to our historical averages. You can see the fade as you get up here toward the coastal plain. You can see the dryness that could possibly still linger in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. But we notice that the West continues to take on several systems. Now, this is just the first map. That's the European model 14-day solution. This is the GFS ensemble. So there's similar behaviors in this, right? So we find area 1, kind of area 2, and then we notice wet here and wet in through there. I'm going to give you another one as well. This next one is the AIFS, the Artificial Intelligence Forecasting System. And very interestingly, it is trying for something in here. It's still drier in the southeast, which I still am not buying into this fully. I'll show you why in a few moments. But extremely wet from parts of Texas, eastern Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, all the way through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. All right. The question I have is on the backside of this, are we seeing snow out of this particular area? We'll come back to that in a few minutes because I know a lot of this is going to be snow in the mountains. So again, this is the ECMWF ensemble. This is the GFS ensemble for 14 days. And here's the artificial intelligence. Okay. So why we're looking at these things so carefully is because we've been drier in pockets here. This is our largest dry sector there. And you can see some places in the southeast getting up toward the Appalachian Mountains into the interior of the northeast that have been drier. Florida's been very dry as of late as well. Whereas the west coast for the last couple of weeks, 1.5 to 2 times normal precipitation. I mean, that area is going to continue to get hit. So big question I'm going to ask myself is, what are the temperature patterns going to be doing as this moisture comes through? Because we have these big buildups of heat like over the next 5 days ahead of this big system I'll show you in a few moments. But there's a pretty strong contrast between here, the U.S. and Canada. And what this tends to do, if we can keep this, is drive stronger flow. Temperature contrast is key to that, okay? So this is day 5 through 10. Now, right in through here, when this colder air sinks in, right, because we know we're very warm, extremely warm. We're going to see 90s, getting here to the Central Plains in the near term. But the models have gone over colder when we look out there past the next 5 days. And I've got questions for the subsequent systems if they're going to be able to produce some snow in this, while much of the south and southeast and east coast stays warm. But to be honest with you, this is the pattern that would drive all of that wet weather. I drew that line too far back to the west. Let's keep it about right there. That wet weather into this corridor. Look at that. Look at this temperature slope on this. This is great. But let's talk about that snow. Because if we look over the next 10 days, the chance of getting 3 inches of snow has been increasing right into this corridor. And that's critical because that's a corridor that we've watched all winter miss out. Again, let me just highlight it for you here. There we go. That's an area that we need to watch. The current deficits season to date are, in this 10 to 20 inch range, some places up to 25 inches. And so we're talking about putting snow down at the end of March, beginning of April. Now, there is benefit to that. I know we don't want it because it's messy and it can be problematic, but snow at the end of March and April is snow you get to keep. And what I mean by that is we've got subsurface soil moisture deficits. This is going down to 16 inches. I hate to say it, but hydrologically, I want snow in here. I mean, we've got to start to cure this. Now, we know that this whole region is going to see some major improvements in soil moisture going forward. My question mark is back here. My question mark is down here. And if that snow comes through this area, that is going to be critical to the water, the profile of water in that region. So what happens after that is also important. How quickly does it warm up? And so this is now the April 5th to April 10th outlook. And we're probably getting some feedback in the model of where that snow is expected to go down, which is why it's cooler here. But a very quick warm-up following a big winter weather event is perfect in early April. That's exactly what we want. Melt that snow, keep it in the topsoil, and that would be ideal. So this is why I'm struggling, though, with the rest of April. These rapid fluctuations in temperature are not able to help me tell you, do we just settle into cold if you're east of the Rockies, or is it volatile, or is it just bust over warm and we just go after it quick? All right, that's the question we're trying to answer. I will work on that and get you an answer to that by Friday, okay? So with all that out of the way, I want to show you the main feature that I'm watching in the near term. And this, to be honest with you, is something that I didn't foresee 3 weeks ago. You're going, what is it again? It's this. This is how the jet stream's behaving across the Pacific Ocean by Saturday. And that is the feature that if you'd asked me 3 weeks ago if the Pacific was going to open up into a big blocking split here, none of us saw that. Like, that wasn't written in the cards. We couldn't tell it based off MJO or anything else. This is just the subseasonal, the weekly chaos of the atmosphere. But it's influencing everything because by the time we get into Sunday, look at this wave break happening here and the cutoff low to the south of it. And because it's happening north and west of Hawaii, the jet stream's going to line out, hit the west coast, bring systems across the United States. And that's why these next 2 weeks, the U.S., in terms of moisture, is going to largely benefit from this big broken split in the middle of the Pacific. Because every time you have the jet stream crashing over the top, that's that wave break, the downstream seems to just take off. Now, though, there are holes we're trying to fill with this. If we bring this stronger flow through here, I just want to know how big that dry slot is where I've drawn that arrow. But it's a pattern that's worth paying close attention to because of what it's going to be doing to our near-term forecast. So here you go, next 10 days. GFS left, European right. We've already talked about these next couple systems. So there's the severe weather threat that's going to be today primarily. See the heavy rains coming into Texas. This is primarily coming from that shortwave. And again, out ahead of it, in parts of Missouri and Illinois, we do have the kind of the squeeze on the atmosphere being helped along by the high pressure that's sitting off the coast. All right, that's just Thursday. If we go into Friday, Saturday, this is where things start to get interesting. On Saturday night, we see our round number 1 with possible snow on the backside. You can see it in both models here, with round 2 lingering over the Rocky Mountains here. So we will watch this corridor open up for some stronger storms on Saturday, but it's the secondary wave, there it is, that comes out Sunday, Monday that we have to pay attention to. So on Sunday, this is Sunday afternoon and evening, this is that corridor we're going to be paying close attention to that the models continue to hint at the risk of some stronger storms. We've got the Gulf moisture, we have the upper level disturbance, we'll have the wind shear, it'll all be in place. Backside snow is possible. Nebraska, Iowa, you can see it in both models. So that's Sunday. That system rolls east. Watch this frontal boundary sneak through the east, bringing in some stronger storms into the southeast Monday night. We've watched that. Northeast wet conditions here, but the next system's already hitting the west. This is Monday, March 31st. So that system comes out, and it seems to have, the Europeans been more consistent with this, it seems to have enough cold air by next Wednesday to just produce more snow across the upper Midwest. The GFS lower skill score model right now is not showing the same timing on this. But there you go, it's coming through. And once again, by next Thursday, the risk of those strong to severe storms in the Ohio Valley into the mid-Mississippi and lower Mississippi Valley. And there's our next system. Now, the GFS is more aggressive than the European, but they both have something coming through here. And this is just how this pattern goes for the next 10 days. So I keep mentioning snow. Let me show you the model differences. As a 10-day outlook from the European on snow, and you can see that there is this corridor through which we're expecting heavy snows. And I got to give 3 talks in the next 2 days for Bayer in Minnesota, and I'm gonna show them this map and say, hey, we have these chances. It's just I wish we could have had them earlier so that you could have enjoyed them, but now we're going to use them for the water. All right, look at the snow coming into Wyoming. Great for the upper Colorado Basin, which I know it's nearby there. And then California. Now that's just one model. This is the GFS solution. Look at the differences here. Huge differences for Nebraska and South Dakota. And the model-to-model runs have been wild. This has been a very challenging area to predict snowfall. The GFS is also clobbering the Sierra Nevadas with heavy, heavy snows. From there, let me show you the AIFS, the artificial intelligence. So again, it's trying to hone in based off history now, this corridor in through which we could get some heavy snow. It's got more for the Colorado Rockies. It's got more for the Sierra Nevada. So this is some good late snow. And then just take a look, and I didn't even mention, but Ontario to Quebec, there's going to be a narrow band in there. It's on all 3 models that grab some heavy snows. So be on the lookout for that. Total moisture-wise, this is our chance at getting over 1 inch. In fact, we could step this up to over 2 inches. And this corridor in through here has a very high probability of going very wet. So I saw some guys planting earlier this week in southern Indiana. You're about to get some very, very heavy rainfall in through that area. We saw it in the WPC. You can now see it in this probability map of getting at least 2 inches, and we might as well step it up to 4 so that you can see there's a 50% chance of 4 inches of rain here, and then here along the northwest coast. The drier spots, total QPF, that's quantitative precipitation forecast, under a ½ inch, are problem spots 1, 2, and 3. So we just continue to hone in on those areas. Okay, from here, a week from now, there's your split. That's your wave break. High over low, downstream resulting trough. That's what's keeping the pattern active into early April. Look at it go. There it is. That's all that to April 4th, Friday, April 4th. Now, what I'm not concerned, but trying to figure out is have the models lost their way after April 4th? That's common. I mean, that's way out there in the forecast. But I don't have a really strong signal. I will want to know, do we have a southeast ridge, and does this trough get closer to the west coast? That'll be the top thing to watch in the model forecasts. But as it stands, because the beginning of week 2 starts with that monster, the week 2 forecast all show it. See it? So looking at April 3rd to April 9th, very active pattern, ripping off another big system right into parts of the central U.S., getting to the Midwest, the Mid-South, the Ohio Valley, the East pretty quickly. This will be interesting to watch. We just need to see if it does actually return some normal precipitation there. Okay, on to temperatures. Here's your frost risk for the next 7 days. And now we get into the part where I am most uncertain. It's this temperature pattern more than anything. Because as you watch the temperatures over the next couple of days, take a look. Here's Wednesday's highs. Thursday, 90s in Kansas possible. Upper 70s in Montana and Wyoming. Friday, you can see the effect of the cloud cover and rain here. Well, we build up into these temperatures, where I am 70s and 80s today. And then you can see, look at how warm it is on the back side of this. The reason it's cooler here is because of rain. Remember that system coming out. Then you get into Saturday, the 29th, into Sunday, the 30th. And there's your quick dive down in temperatures as this weekend system rolls through. There's Monday's temperatures pushing the warmth into the south and east. And then we get into Tuesday. Now, I've shown you this already with my maps, so I'm going to show you the maps from weather models. So Dr. Ryan Maui makes these. That's the next 5 days. There's day 5 through 10. Now, that has been very poorly represented in the longer range models. Remember, I've been showing you these early April outlooks forever, and this is now the new first 5 days of April. Not well forecast at all. Very terrible. And I've struggled with it, so full confession there. And then we get into week 2 fully. This would be day 5 through 10, which gets us out to April 10th. And now we've got these cooler signals here near normal through the Midwest, warmer than normal in the Southeast. And that's where the problem is really getting me. So a couple of things to point out here, okay? Come to the website. I'm in Alexandria today, so Alexandria. I got a lot of Alexandrias in the country. We're going to go to the one in Minnesota. And I want to just get a forecast from our system. So you can see the temperatures here changing pretty rapidly over the coming days. That's what the red numbers are. But I want to take you down here just to show you something. I have a lot of folks itching to get going in April, to just get going. And I want to remind you that you can come to this site, click on year-to-date GDDs, and it'll show you these historic frost dates. That's what the blue bars are. For the last 40 years, when has the last spring frost been? When's the first fall frost been? And you can see the accumulation of GDDs over time. Now, just as a reminder, if I'm in Alexandria, Minnesota, we're typically looking at the last week of April, first week of May as our last frost date, knowing that we can get frost all the way, past the middle of May. And then our October, first week of October is typically our first frost date. So you can do this for any city you want that I have in the database right now. And please just go have a look at it and try to understand, as I start to try to understand how early of a spring we're going to get or how late, this is what I'm going to be looking at. Okay, so from there, I want to show you this. This is why I'm frustrated. I rely on the European model. I like it. I think it's a great model. I show it to you all the time. This is its new April forecast. Now, if that doesn't look like just the next 2 weeks carried on, right? I just showed you that, the next 2 weeks, then I don't know what does. But I want to show you why this model is very frustrating to me right now. I'm going to go back, 3 runs ago. That was the forecast for April. So I showed you this on Monday. And I'm like, what is going on? I remember we were a bit confused about this forecast going so dry in here. And I overlaid my own drawing on it, saying, no, I think this whole area is going to be much wetter. And the risk is back here for being drier based off persistence. But again, that is the April outlook from today. Just 3 runs ago, that's what it looked like. And 2 runs ago. And then the last previous run. And then now the newest run. Look at the differences here. This model is stuck on what's happening right now. And it's not able to pick up a signal. And I know why. The MJO is trying to collapse. We don't have a good strong signal from that. We're getting this big wave break event that's in the Pacific, so the Pacific jet is a mess. And there's no other dominant signal. La Niña's out. It's kind of in so neutral conditions right now. And that's what I know. So the temperature side of it, that is now April 5th through April 12th. Now watch this. If I go back and show you, 3 runs ago, that was April 5th through April 12th. Remember earlier in the week I was kind of questioning, like, hey, are we going to go mild? The models are signaling that. They were going on a trend, and now they've just said no. And they collapse it back into this view. So here's what I'm going to work on to the end of this week, and I'll present it to you on Friday. I'm trying to figure out this April pattern, and I really want to ask a big question. I'm going to split the country up on the Rocky Mountains. We're going to look at both sides and try to determine what the pattern needs to be for this to go over warm here or warm there, and the opposite, cold or cold. That's what we're going to do. We're going to tackle that on Friday, okay? So where do we finish this forecast video? I think one of the biggest signals to be watching going forward is going to be this. It's one of my favorite sites, and what it's looking at here is vertical and zonal integral of total atmospheric angular momentum. You're going, all right, what is that? It's the way the atmosphere is moving with respect to the rotation of the Earth. And it's bend up here, if you will. It's shown as a function of latitude and time. And you say, well, remember how cold January and February were? Look at that. That's a major loss of momentum. So what did we get? We got flow that came out of the north, driving, back in January, drove a blizzard down into Louisiana. Remember that? Okay, we've lost it. See this? This is why predictability is challenging right now. There's no strong signal like we had back in January and February where I felt quite confident in forecasts. This is it. So just understand that that's a major issue, and the MJO is going to be interesting to watch. Now, look, we're still in that time frame where if the MJO, which is apparently here, although I don't understand why, if it slips over into these phases, 7, 8, and 1, these are cold phases for the eastern half of North America. If it, like the ensemble suggests, crashes and pops back out over here, well, our warm phases are there. And that's the big unknown. We got to figure that out. So if you don't mind, let's just live in these kind of next 10 days right now, next 10 days to 2 weeks until I have that signal down. And this is how things are shaping up globally. Remember, we're trying to bring better rains into much of Argentina and Brazil. This is interesting. In Bahia, new forecasts have gone over back to dry. And even the week 2 forecasts are trying to go drier in eastern Brazil. This is in grand total maybe 10% of the safrinha corn acres here, though, that we're talking about. Take a look at how wet much of northern Australia, Queensland, New South Wales are in the forecast. Extremely wet, because I think the MJO is living here, which is in phases like 4 and 5, not 7 and 8. 7 and 8 are off the map. Actually, they're over here. So I'm watching this very carefully. China, most of China is dry right now. We see much of Western Europe is dry, but around the northern side of the Mediterranean, over toward the Black Sea, Turkey, very wet. And then you can see the U.S. pattern as well. Temperature-wise globally, I'll just leave you on this map. That's how things are shaping up. We've redistributed the heat from the northern hemisphere to kind of sit here while much warmer conditions are there. And the big question is going to be in April, do those two things flip-flop? Do we send the cold air back to Russia? That's what I'll be watching, all right? Okay, take care, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks.